What up, nerds? My name is Colin, Mr. Swirly Ice Keef, and today we're going to be building the ATtiny Programmer PCB board. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's go File, New, Schematic, Grid On, and let's just save this now. We'll go to our Documents projects. We'll just save it somewhere here and call it ATtiny Programmer. So our ATtiny Programmer is an Arduino Uno shield. So we're going to need something that represents the Arduino Uno pins. And of course we're going to need our ATtinys. So let's go ahead and add the ATtinys first. So let's do add ATtiny, and we're going to add 3 of them. So we're going to add the X5, pick the one with the connector. This is going to make it easier for us to see. We don't have a 3D preview, but it's going to look like this on the board. Drop it anywhere for now. And let's go ahead and add some more ATtinys. So let's go to X4, and we're going to add, again, same connector. This one has a preview this time. Don't know why the other one didn't load. Give it a little bit of space, maybe like right here. And then we're going to add our third ATtiny, and this one's going to be the X313. And again, we're going to do the connector. Great, so we have our 3 ATtinys. We're going to be powering them with 5 volts. So let's go ahead and add a 5 volt tap, and we'll show how we'll power that soon. And then route them as appropriate. Add our ground. Cool. And then the way we're going to program these is using the serial peripheral interface, or SPI pins, and they're labeled right here. So MOSI, MISO, serial clock, and then we need to use the reset pin. So let's put some labels there. And I like my labels with the XREF on, 0.05, 10% ratio, and vector font. And then let's name these appropriately. So we're actually going to name this one Slave Select, and I'll show you guys why in a minute. This is MOSI, MISO. This is Master Out, Slave In, Master In, Slave Out, and SCK for serial clock. So we're going to want the same things on the other pins. So I'm going to do a little shortcut here. So I got 2 out of 4. And then for the ATtiny X313, great. Let's go ahead and box all 3 of these up and then give them appropriate labels. I'm going to name them also. So I'm going to name this one ATtiny X5. Even though we're adding an ATtiny 85 in particular, it'll support all the ATtiny X5s, just fine with this. The reason why I have the ATtiny 85, 84, and 4313 is because they're really common and I've used them in other projects. Alright, now let's box them up. And now let's give them some labels. Great, so we have our ATtinys. The next thing we can add is the Arduino Uno header pins, so what it's actually going to be connecting to. So on the left we have the power pins and the analog pins, and on the right we have the upper digital and the lower digital pins. So what we're going to use are these particular connectors, 1x6. We're actually going to use 2 of them, and we're going to use vert male. So through hole, vertical, male, 2.54 millimeter spacing, just like that. And then we're actually going to use a second one and mirror it. So it's going to make sense when we get to the board how it's going to pan out, but I'm going to name this one power. This is going to be our power rail, and I'm going to name this one upper digital. It's going to be our upper digital rail, and the exact pins will make sense in just a moment. And then I'm going to add a 1x2, again vertical male, and this is actually going to be our analog pins, so I'm going to name it analog. And then we have one more, it's a 1x4 header, and this is going to be our lower digital. Let's go ahead and start to name them appropriately. So if you have an Arduino Uno in front of you, some of these pins will make sense. So this one's going to be reset, label 0.05, 10. If you put an exclamation point in front, it'll give it the bar over the top. You don't have to do that, but in case you're curious, this is going to be 3.3 volts and then 5 volts. And then the next 2 are ground. The bottom one is VN. The analog pins, these are the 2 upper analog pins, so it's going to be A0 and A1. And then here are some of the digital pins, so go ahead and label those. And this is going to be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and this is 10, 11, 12, 13. However, they have alternate names that we're going to use, and they're going to be the SPI pins. So just for our reference, I'm going to put little text labels and then name them as appropriate. So this is just for our reference. And then we're going to name them as appropriate. So this is going to be the save select. This will be able to select the ATtiny using the Arduino, the MOSI, MISO, and serial clock. Great. So let's go ahead and box this up. And this is essentially our Arduino Uno shield headers. I want to make it a little bit smaller because it's probably going to be too big. Cool. And then there's just a couple more things we're going to add. One of them is necessary, the other one's just for us for debug. So we're going to add a 10 microfarad capacitor. This is necessary when we are programming the ATtiny. There's a signal to the Arduino reset pin that will reset the Arduino, and we don't want that to happen, so the 10 microfarad capacitor will stop that. And it's going to be connected to the reset pin. If you labeled your reset pin with the exclamation point with the bar, then this also has to have the exclamation point with the bar also. And then we're going to add a power LED. So this LED is simply so that we can see that power is on. I made it a blue LED 0805, but you can make it anything else you want. And then we're going to add a resistor. So we can add any value resistor. I'm going to add 1K just because it'll make it sufficiently bright and it's a common value. Connect the appropriate connections. 5 volts. So earlier I was saying we're gonna get the 5 volts. The 5 volts is right here, so it's coming from the Arduino power itself, and that's what will be powering our ATtiny and our little power LED. So this is just for debugging purposes. All right, let's go ahead and wrap this guy up. And I'm not sure of a good name for what to call these, so I'm just gonna call it miscellaneous circuitry. Great, so this is our schematic for the ATtiny programmer. We feature the ATtiny X5, ATtiny X4, ATtiny X313, and again, these are the dip connectors, so we can plug in our ATtiny and then remove it after we program it. These are Arduino Uno shield headers. It might be clear that we don't have all the Arduino header pins, but that's because we want our board to be as small as possible, and we're only going to need just enough pins to cover the area that the ATtinys cover to make our board as small as possible. And then we have the reset capacitor so that when we're programming the ATtiny, our Arduino Uno doesn't reset when we're trying to upload our program. And then we have just the power LED just for debugging purposes and to see something actually glow on our PCB board, because this circuit is not very exciting. But the ATtiny programmer is a very powerful tool, as we will show you in this project. All right, next up, we're actually going to get started on the board.